Hi everybody, Chaz Large here with another Fix It video, and on the bench today we've got a vintage piece of audio tech. This is a Philips stereo system. It's a model, I didn't know it, let's have a look on the back. Where are we? A 22 RH811 is the model number, and I've just run a couple of quick initial tests, one of which you can hear probably. There's a lot of hissing and crackling on that right hand channel. If I switch it into medium wave,
so even in the
and adjust the
default
volume control, move it in and out. We've obviously got some dodgy controls on the front here, so that's a bit of an issue. Tuner seems to be working. FM should pick up something, even without an aerial here. Let's stick something in the aerial. So the FM is definitely working, but I think our main problem with this is the audio. But the other problem with it, let me just move the camera around a little bit so you can see a little bit more. We've got a cassette deck on the top. I put a cassette in and switch it to pick up rec, press play. Nothing, doesn't move, it squeals. So I think we've got a problem with the cassette deck. Let's just put it in without, yeah, so it's not even turning. I think the cassette deck has got a problem as well. So effectively we've got to strip it to pieces so that we can have a look inside and see where we are getting at. So I'm going to switch it off. Took me a while to find the power switch, it's sort of half hidden down the bottom right hand corner there. It's not marked in any way, and I was looking around with trying to turn the knobs. There was no switch, but there it was. It was a push button down there. So let's get it apart and have a look inside. Just going to get rid of the speakers and get it into a position that's a bit better to work on. Right, I've just tested it on my own speakers and the problem is still there, so it's definitely a fault in there. I just wanted to double check that it wasn't the speakers that were causing the problem. I'd swapped them over and the fault was still the same. So let's get inside this beastie and see what we can do. So we'll start off by unplugging. We'll unplug the speakers and we'll have a little look with the overhead camera to see what we can see. So cassette deck is there. I did download a manual for this when the customer got in contact with me, so we should be able to fairly easily get into this. Now there are two little panels here with some screws in, so we'll start off by undoing these and see what they reveal. There's one circuit board. Oh, I love these old Philips circuit boards. Amazing the way that they were done. This was all hand-drawn circuit boards back in the 60s and 70s. Yeah, there's the other one. Now, obviously, this particular machine was made specifically for serviceability, because we've got circuit boards accessible through panels, we've got fuses accessible, even the ratings of the fuses are burnt into the plastic. Now we've got to do is work out how to get inside it, and I can see by looking down through this hole and this hole there's a small flat head screw which is probably what's holding the top cover on. So let's have a look and see if that releases, if I can get my screwdriver into the slot. That's the difficulty with being a flathead screwdriver. Let's try that one. Not easy. Oh, there it is. I've just managed to get it caught. Okay, let's try this one again. Now what I'm hoping is that the top cabinet is going to come away nice and cleanly, revealing. Oh, a screw. I wish they'd used Phillips head screwdriver screws, but they didn't use flat heads. Well, it's different spelling of Phillips. Oh, goodness. Now looking down there, I can see the slot is vertical, so I should be able to. That is not going in there, that screw. Let's see, will that one, that's not long enough. What about that one? Oh yes, just long enough. No, it's not actually turning. Okay, let's think again. Now, I have got another thinner flat blade. Just suddenly remember this one. I can see it's horizontally across. Okay, got that one. Okay, any screws along this back edge? Can't see any. Let's tip it over. Yeah, I can feel the top cover is now loose. And we should have some screws dropping out quite happily. There's two anyway. There's another one. What's coming away from where? Something felt looser. Ah. Right, so this top bit here is a separate piece. It seems to be stuck. Have we missed a screw? There's another screw. I thought we got them all. We have. Use a pry tool. See if we can be careful here because it's that. Oh, I see the. I think what's happened is that this has got stuck with a bit of goo down here, or a lifetime of stuff. So I'm just going to push this down there just to see if I can ease it apart. Human detritus this is, I think. Or maybe somebody's polished it and it's all polished down here that's gone hard. Okay. At last. We are now free That's actually, look at that, that's quite serviceable in the grand scheme of things. I wonder if there's a date code from when this was made on anything. I don't think so. There's no chips in here, no integrated circuits. BC 148s. A lot of those about. Lots of capacitors. But none of them look like they're about to explode or anything. I think Philips always tended to use really good quality components. Light bulbs. Let's get this detritus off of here. I think it is definitely just dried wax polish. Maybe I should leave it. Adds to the value, does it? Possibly. I doubt it. So be careful not to slip and scratch the cabinet, which I've just done twice. But that'll polish out. There's another screw. Oh, some of these screws are longer. You have to be careful with that. 2, 3, 4. Okay. Let's put the shiny bits over there. Now, I can see all straight away, and I'm sure you probably can too. If I bring the old close-up camera into this deck, we can see immediately what the problem is, why the deck was not moving. We have the remains of a drive belt that is just all goo. Capstan's there, there's a rubber wheel against it, there's that, but not a lot left of the belt, so I'm going to have to take that mechanism out, take it apart and get rid of that goo which was a drive belt. Must admit, I've never come across Philips equipment with drive belts which have gone before like this. Not the original Philips that are made in the Netherlands. First time for everything, so they say. Now I've started spreading goo on the motor. Why is that? Right, that definitely needs a good old clean. Now, can I get that tape deck out of there without having to take loads of other stuff out? There's one screw on a bracket there, there's one screw on a bracket here, there's a switch at the back, can't see any, perhaps there's that one big screw in there. I think that's probably the three that are going to get me into this tape deck, but looks like I'm going to have to also hoik out this circuit board and this switch, otherwise I'm going to be pulling against one and against another one. I think so. Let's just see. So we should now, okay, here we've got another switch at the back as well. Oh my goodness. And that is a Philips tape deck. It looks like there's just one drive belt which is disintegrated. The other drive belt that drives the counter I think is still okay. By the look of it, I can see it, but I'm not sure. But I've now got to also remove that switch off the back panel. Is that screwed in from the back? Yes, it appears to be. That's that screw there. 2 screws rather. Push that switch off. We should now have a clear deck. That switch is RIF, radio interference, I think is what that meant. Can't remember. Might be. Yes, beat cut is another phrase for it, isn't it? So if we turn this whole unit right round now, you should be able to get the deck into a reasonable, serviceable position. Excellent. And before we do any more, I'm going to put some gloves on, because I don't particularly want this mucky stuff all over my hands and getting it spread everywhere else. It shouldn't be too difficult to clean up. The majority, I think, of the belt has actually ended up around the motor pulley. Some of it on this idler. Oh yeah, there's a fair bit of it on the idler and quite a lot of it on the capstan. So it's all going to have to be removed and cleaned. So I now have to go and have some lunch, and I'll come back later on. Right, gloves on. Time to dig into this Philips cassette deck and clean up these idlers. Now hopefully the only thing I'm going to have to dismantle on here is going to be the capstan bearing here, which appears to be held in by 3 screws on the side here. The pulley on the motor just here seems to be okay just on its own, so I should be able to clean that. This idler I shouldn't need to take off. Hoping that I can just wipe off now. I'm already getting covered in this goo. So, time to get some isopropyl on a piece of paper. Wipe where this goo has spread itself on these wires so we don't spread it any further. Right, now this pulley's going to have to come off of there. In fact, I just realised also down in here there's quite a lot on this idler wheel here as well. So this is all going to have to come out. So is that a circlip on there? I think that is, a little tiny circlip. So we find ourselves a little watchmaker's screwdriver, which we can stick into the edge, leave it, put my finger over the top of it so it doesn't go flying off. There's usually like a little notch in it that you can get your edge of your screwdriver in. There it is. Oh, that was close. I thought I got it, I hadn't. So let's get a little tray, pop it in there. That's safe in there, so that idler is there. Is that a washer on top? No, that's part of the bearing. I'm going to pop that straight in my little tray. Now the pinch roller, the idler can't come up unless I take the circuit board off, so we've got to release the circuit board. I wonder if we can just release it and move it enough. A little tray for these screws. I'm doing a screw here. And then there's 2 screws here. I think that's a transistor there with it on like a heat sink. Yeah, let's have a look. Actually, I think that whole block can come away off with this screw. Let's see. Not sure, let's just release it a little bit more. No, that's not coming loose. There's definitely a transistor on a heatsink. Felt washer. I just realised there was a felt washer on there as well. I thought it was stuck on, but it's actually fallen off, so I've just taken that there. Okay, and I'll release these. I don't think this is going to release it because I think that's a transistor and it's connected here. So if I release this, I'm going to have to release that transistor as well. No other screws, is there? Let's release that one as well then. No, that's fixed to that plate. Why is that plate not coming away? The metal plate goes underneath those. There. Is that plate mounted somewhere else as well? Right. Those of you that are screaming at the screen saying, why don't you use the manual? often the manual doesn't show you things like this. Okay, I'm going to release that transistor. Yep. Okay, I thought it was, yep, definitely a transistor there. AC128, I know that because that's one of the first little repairs I ever did. Oh, there's a little washer that's come off there. I wonder which one that come from. Was replacing one of those. I had to find one, and I found an old Philips reel-to-reel tape recorder that I was given as a youngster, and it fell apart. And at the time I wasn't clever enough to fix it, but I nicked the transistor out of it. In fact, I nicked all the components out of it. And threw the circuit board and the mechanism away. Oh! They're now going for hundreds of pounds. Right, so let's put that bracket back and leave that there, so at least that will give us enough room now. That's all we really wanted, was just enough flexibility to take the capstan out, like so. Yay! We've got a washer on there. I'm going to stick my capstan in that bowl, put that washer there. So remember, the big washer for the capstan goes on there. Let's just dump this cloth like this fully. And then we've got another little pulley down here which we've got to take off, a little spring clip over the top. That screwdriver is not big enough to lever it, so finger on top of it, and usually just twisting it on the edge. There it goes, releases that. Put that in there. Now we can get that idler out. Oh, that one's got a whole bunch of goo on it as well, so we'll take that idler out and give that one a clean. There's a washer on there as well. Put that in our little tray. Now, that one I think is fitted I think we can get that with a cotton bud. Preferably one that doesn't come unravelled when we go to use it. Try that end. Pretty sure I got all the stuff off of that. Right. Get some more. I'm going to clean my gloves off because I'm covered in it again. We've got in here this idler. We've got this idler and the pinch roller. Let's drop that idler back in there. Let's get the old brush. I think we have all the parts cleaned as well as they can be. As we've now cleaned it all up, time for a bit of reassembly. So, just going to quickly rewind the video so I can see what went where. Right, so first off I found the washer that goes on the capstan. I've put it on there so we know exactly where it is. Then we have the washer that goes underneath this pulley, which is that one there. Oops, he drops it straight into the mechanism. That goes, oh, dropped it again. No, 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 no. Oh, no. Right, we have found the errant washer. It had just dropped through. I'll try and pick it up again, this time a bit more carefully. Place it over, put my finger on it, drop it down onto there. Now we can get the either on there. I just need to double check something else. Right, got it, and make sure that the pulley bit is at the top. And then we get the little red clip. Very gently put that on the top, finger on the top, press it down, hopefully it will clip into place. It hasn't, it's moved off to one side. Try again. Now, as it's on a lever, I'm just going to put a screwdriver underneath to give myself a bit of brace to press against. That doesn't work. Oh, that's really tough. I've got it nearly there, just push it down the edge with the tweezers. There we are. So that is now on. One step further forward. The capstan should go in first. I bet those of you that are actually watching this all the way through were shouting at the screen saying, "You haven't done this right, you should have put the capstan in first." But there we are. Mistakes happen. Eager to get on with it is what I was. So let's see if we can do that. Okay, so this is going to be the most difficult bit because we have got the spring, the plate, then we've got a washer, and then a circlip, and just two hands to do it. So I'm going to have to make sure that we do not release anything. So that's down. We've now got to get that washer on there. And it just flicked and disappeared off the edge of the bench. Do you know, I almost knew that something like that was going to happen. Right. Stop the video while I search the floor for a tiny 1mm washer. So let's see if we can do that whole thing all over again. Put the close-up specs back on again. Let's see if we can do it without losing it again. So we drop well, I think that was more luck than judgment that actually got that in there in the right place. Right, so now that we've got all the pulleys cleaned, we have got a decision about belts. So this is where I'm going to have to get the manual, because obviously you've got one main drive belt goes around here, goes around the pulley, but we've also got a pulley and a pulley here. Now, do they have a tiny little belt that goes across there, or is there another belt that goes from somewhere else? I think it's just one tiny little belt. So let's dig the manual out and have a look at that and see what it says about belts. Okay, so yes, according to the manual, there are two drive belts, one tiny little drive belt that goes across here and one drive belt that goes round like that. So we're going to have to see if I can find one to fit on there. I'm not sure that I've actually got anything on my ready to out of the box belts fit that, but we will have to have a look and see. So bear with me while I have a look for some drive belts. Just take that up there so we can see a little bit more. There we go. Well, as luck would have it, my stock of drive belts has come in handy. The drive belt for the capstan is a perfect fit. However, the drive belt for the pulleys for the rewind idler is actually a little bit too big. Now, that's the smallest belt that I had of that size. I've got a couple which are smaller than that, but they're too small to stretch to fit onto this, so they're making it much too hard. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just try and make sure, see if it's actually working when I put a tape in and whether it will work. If it doesn't, I'm actually going to take that belt off and boil it, and hopefully it will shrink it down just enough to make it fit. So having got back to this stage, I need to reassemble the screws, etc., and put everything back on this side. And that involves getting various things into the right place. Now there's a lever on here. That lever there, that's the record switch that goes into the record playback switch. So we've just got to make sure that slots into there. And then that allows that plate to be aligned. So then our plates and screws, etc., that went was it on this one? I think it was on this one, wasn't it? Yep, that's it. And that's the little threaded screw with a lock nut on it. And then we had a longer screw through that. No diagram that shows where that goes through and which way around it is. Now there's marks there where, and yeah, that cutout matches that cutout on the board, on the circuit board. Look, yeah, I should have realised that. Like that. Well, that's the way it's going in. Doubtless the video may show it in place. I will double check on that once I've got these screws in place. Right, pause a moment while I go and check the video. Yep, I've just checked the video and I've got that in the right way, in the right position, so that's good. So I can tighten up this screw up this end as well. And that one now we should be able to test the deck, but we need to make sure that nothing's touching and shorting out that doesn't touch and short out. Okay. Oh, of course it would also help if we put the the bottom plate on the pinch room, on the capstan. And I've just noticed a big smudge on my finger. So where has that come from? It's obviously come off of something around here. Off there, no. Can't see where that's come from. Right. Now before we put this on there, I'm just going to apply just a very tiny little drop of oil on there. Put that plate back in place. I think it's actually got some little alignment lugs, yeah. So I don't need to worry too much about it being off alignment. One long screw in there. Come on, catch that thread. There you go. And the last one down this corner as well. Right. Jiggle it so it goes into those little alignment holes. Tighten up those and then tighten up this one that goes through 2 plates. Okay. I think we're ready on that side. Let's just turn it over. Make sure it sits safely and nothing's shorting out. And we'll just give this mechanism a quick dust off because there's a fair bit of dust floating around in there. The heads don't look too bad, but I'll clean them up in a minute. I just want to make sure that it's actually working as it should do. So let's connect some speakers. So nothing's shorting out, touching it what shouldn't be. But plug in the hole. It lights up. And we've got a cassette deck on that end, so we press play. Now that, to me, that squeal that's a motor bearing squeal, but it's definitely working, so I think we can say those belts are okay. But that motor bearing definitely needs a little bit of lubrication. Let's power it off and off here. Now can we just drip a little tiny bit of lubrication into that motor. Now we could probably, if we spent a long time getting that motor apart, we could. Some years ago when I was in hospital, I had an operation and they gave me some stuff to put into me. It's basically to help you clotting. It's a clotting agent. And I thought, I'm not going to throw those syringes away when I've finished with them, I'm going to keep them and use them for very delicate purposes. So we've got a very fine needle with some oil, which I can just get into here and put a little tiny bit into that motor bearing. There we are. So you can actually see it's just slightly run down. Put the cap on, make sure I don't prick myself with that. It's a handy, so you ever go in for an operation, they give you some injections to have when you come out. Keep the syringe, it could be useful. Let's just mop up that overspill. And then we'll power it up. We'll press fast forward or rewind, doesn't matter. Just give that motor a good whiz. Hopefully lubricate that. Now at the same time, we'll also use a little drop of that oil just on these two bearings of these pulleys as well, which we've a little drop on that one as well. And that should give it a bit of lubrication. Okay, I'm going to turn it off so I can turn it over. Okay, turn it back on again. And the motor's still squealing like a good one. Alright, let's just put some music on just to see if the actual tape deck is working. We'll clean these pots. Okay, I think we are at a bit of an impasse here to see if this motor needs to be replaced. I was hoping it's going to be alright, but I mean, you never know with these things. I've got motors, I can replace the motor, that shouldn't be a problem, but I think it's just a probably a 12 volt motor. We can check that when we've, because I've got a 12 volt motor that I'm pretty sure will fit that. Let's just get the test meter on that and see what volts is across that motor when we're running it. Which is that red and that blue. It's a 5 volt motor. that's a little bit more tricky. 5-volt motors are not that easy to come by. Okay, it looks like I'm going to have to see if I can come on, stop. Take it out and clean the bearings on it, or at least get some oil in the other end. I've only oiled the top bearing, not the bottom bearing. Right, let's power it off, socket off. Let's have a look. How does that motor fit in there? It's held in place by that clamp. There it is. I'll take that screw right out. Probably don't need to, but at least that gives me maximum flexibility. And release the motor, push it down the other way because that's where the wires are coming from. Now we've got a rubber sleeve which we can pull off. We've got an original part number there. So if we can't fix it, we may be able to, yes. It's all compressed together. Right, just to make sure that this is, also getting loads of black gunk again. Where's that coming from? Oh, smudge it on the top deck, presumably, and down here. Yeah. Ah. No. Okay. Oh, we lost that. No, we haven't lost that label. Right, I'm going to see if I can find a replacement motor, because I don't think I'm going to get that apart safely. If I get it apart, I might not get it back together again. Right, here we are back with this Philips Hi-Fi, and I've done it again, stupidly. I found a replacement motor, an old motor from an old radio cassette recorder, and went through the whole process of fitting it onto here, but stupidly I hadn't pressed record. I thought I had, but I'd not clicked it properly. Anyway, managed to get it fitted, and as luck would have it, the bearing on there, sorry, not the bearing, the pulley on there is roughly the same size, so I'm hoping that I won't need to change that. All I've got to do now is wire this one in, and hopefully it will work. So I'm just going to release that drive belt, and we'll solder this in and see what happens. So the negative side, in fact, actually I think what I might do is just put a little slip of insulation on the negative side. Let me get the positive side on first. This is, if that heat shrink on there, as soon as I touch this, it's going to shrink it down. Just heat it anyway, just to make sure it shrink fits. There we go, so that should hopefully. Now, I tested the motor on DC, on my power supply rather, and it was travelling in the same clockwise direction, and I just popped it onto here and powered it up with the power supply and put a tape in, and it was playing back and it sounded roughly right. So having now got it connected into here, let's now see if it actually works with the supply, the correct supply. Now this is a 7-volt motor, 6 or 7 volts, but changing the voltage anywhere between 5 and 9 volts, the speed of the motor didn't change at all. So I'm hoping there's a fixed control in there, same as there probably is in this one, in the old one. So in here it should be fixed, and it should be identical. So the other thing I did whilst I was doing that playback test was to clean the controls on the front panel, because they were really crackly and noisy. So that's the controls at the front there, so we have volume, bass, treble and balance, etc. along there. I've cleaned all those with some contact cleaner. So we're now ready to give it a proper test and make sure that it works. So power it on. Let's just make sure it actually does go into play. Yes, it does. So let's pop a tape in. Sounds good. Produces quite a good sound, this amplifier. Bass and treble, balance left and right. And I'm going to be replacing these speakers soon, because these speakers are shot. They're not really man enough for the job. Right, but that's another story altogether. Next thing we've got to do is to check and see if it's running at the right speed. So we get our test tape and provide a 1 kHz tone in the tape. The tape has got 1 kHz test tone built in. Now put the scope on it, because that's the simplest way of doing things. And we will find the output stage. The speaker's out. You got line output? Yeah, probably on one of these. Let's use that ground and just press play. Various connections on this back board here. 2 volts signal. So there we have a signal. So you can see on the scope there. It's running a little bit fast, which is a shame. But as I have no way of controlling it, now this is a 3 kHz tone on this side, and that's running at 4 kHz. That's awkward. Now, can I prise open this lid on this motor to see if there's a control circuit in there I can adjust the speed? I think probably that's what I'm going to have to do. Hopefully on here we can get into this motor and we should be able to get the little adjustment control inside. Now I'm just going to try and use a pair of cutters just to get that off of there, get something into there and lever that cap off. Yeah. Something a bit more sturdy in there, a bit further across. Let's get the scope out of the way a minute. Probably should have done this before I fitted the motor. Might be easier to I don't know whether it's going to be easier to get in there. Yeah, it's coming now. Let's go this other side. Of course, this may be totally fruitless. There may not be an adjustment in here. I'm hoping there will be. Okay, got it so far. I hope I can get pliers in there now. Yep. And no. Typical. Let's just take that out of there. That motor come out. Okay. So it would appear that this case and the rubber bung in there is just barely as a fixed position for us somewhere else, so that's a shame. And I don't think there's any speed control inside the end of it. It's just purely a fixed. Hang on, something's just fallen out. What's that? Might just be a bit of mounting rubber or something. Lever that pulley off. It's only plastic, so it should come straight off. Good. Right, so it's just like a mounting plate which is cracked. Off of there. Okay, so let's have a comparison of that pulley with that pulley. As I had it on the inner lip of that, it's roughly the same size. There, so if I measured it with my micrometer, so this doesn't look like it's got any adjustment control inside. As I said, varying the voltage on this doesn't make any difference. I'm assuming that that little hole there isn't a speed adjustment. It's very rare that they'd actually put the control, the adjustment control, up here. Have a little look. I guess it's just a... Well, it's strange that it would have no voltage control. Because I mean, if that was in a cassette recorder, which it was, and the volts would vary, that would make the speed vary, wouldn't it? So therefore that would make sense for this to have like a control circuit on the inside of that. Well, given that if we can take it apart, we can put it back together again. Let's give it a go. Okay, so we've got that, the tabs there. There's a capacitor in there, which would tend to indicate that there is a speed control. Or is it just a capacitor? Let's push it through. Right. That's just electrical noise reduction. Now, there's our speed control there. As this flies round, so that's making and breaking, isn't it? It's got to be. Okay, so that screw was at, say, 1 o'clock, no, 2 o'clock. I'm going to make this back to 9 o'clock. Put it back together, but before I do, I'm just going to, as I've got it apart, I'm going to clean up that commutator. My fibre pen. Okay, carefully put that back in between the two brushes. Get that back into the bearing. I've put a little drop of oil in the bearings as well when I'm doing it in a moment. So let's just take that little tag round there and squeeze it. It hasn't gone quite straight back, so give it a little tap. Got it in. Put the pulley back on. Now, because I've taken it out of that holder, I have to put it back in there. I'll have to put a bit of plastic in there or something just to hold that in place next time. So this could of course make it run faster. Where's the lid for it? We'll have it over there. So if it runs fast, that means we've got to take it apart again and do it all again. Actually, what it should do, just bend those little tags back. This won't go back together like this, I'm going to do it a different way. Damn it, it moved too much. Oh, come on. Well, those bits have moved anyway, so I think I'd have to do something a bit more drastic. Anyway, let's just get it held in place by that rubber. No. You've got to stay there, is it? Right, okay, abandon that one. Let's use some tape to go around there. Just pop the pulley back on anyway. So it's just level, we'll just wrap a whole ring of tape around it. Just for now. It's going to have to be more around the end. Of course, the other thing we need to be aware of is that, yeah, I'm going to have to wedge that in there with something, is that the motor has to turn backwards for reverse, because this is a mechanism that uses the motor physically turning backwards. Okay, let's get some let's get something a little bit more. Oh, that'll do. Use a bit of folded up kitchen roll to wrap around it. I'll find a bit of plastic tubing or something that will do the job. If this works. The speed has changed. Right, I'll just temporarily tighten that up. That should hold it in place enough for us to check A, that it still works, and B, that it's the right speed. So that'll do for now. It's not binding on anything. Make sure it still goes into play. Let's put the tape in. Let's get our scope, which I think was that one. Well, it's done it in terms of reducing the speed. It's now 3.7 kilohertz. So we know we were going in the right direction with that. So let's do that again. So as you've seen what I've had to do, to get the speed down, I'm basically going to keep doing this backwards and forwards. I'll come back to you when I've got the speed just right. Right, so basically I've got the motor again apart, and I've turned this control a further 180 degrees, and hopefully that will be nearer the right speed. So let's just put my finger on the end of that pulley, get that into there, and hopefully this should just push together a bit better than the last time. Yeah, let's just tap it in place. Okay, push that back into the paper loop that I've created. Put the drive pulley back on. Right, so hopefully that's a little bit closer to the right speed. 3 kilohertz tone in, power on, make sure nothing's shorting out. Power on. And that speed is now 3.3 kilohertz. Down from 3.9. So I think one more half turn. Let's just see what it's like at a lower frequency, 1 kilohertz. It should still be running slightly fast. 1.12. Maybe half a turn. Now the other thing we needed to check to see if it was going to go fast forward and rewind. So fast forward is okay because we know that's the same and reverse is okay as well. So yes, it does go forwards and backwards. Great. Let's do it one more time. Rip off the belt, pull out the motor. Because we need access, we need to just push the rotor all the way out, like so. And there's our little adjustment screw. So I'm just going to tweak this another quarter turn back this way, like so. I guess there must be some sort of setup when they do this when they make these in the factory all those years ago, but goodness knows how. Probably a little jig or something they use to do that. Okay, signal's still on. Right, power on. Play. And we are 1.02 kilohertz. Now, to me, that's pretty damn good. Let me just show you that in detail. Focus it. Zoom in. 1.02. Come on, focus. There it is. 1.02 kilohertz. Let's turn the tape over. 3 kilohertz on this side. 1.0. If this is 3.0, we're laughing. We are laughing. That's about as good as we're going to get it. I'm not going to fiddle with it anymore. We are done with that motor speed. I'm very happy with that. So we are able to get this old beastie going with a replacement motor. So all we've got to do now is work out how to fix this permanently. We can't leave it just wrapped up with paper towel. That's just not very professional, is it? So let's see what we can do to replace that with something a bit more correct. So what we really need to do is to have something that will take the gap. Oh, before we do that, we need to put this back together, don't we? So let's just pull that through a little bit. Can we drop a little drop of oil into that bottom bearing? Although it's going to be that way up, so it really needs to be this bearing that we need to lubricate. So this, but we need to do both anyway. So let's just pop that down there. And the other thing we need to do is to, as that's had some Loctite on it, that screw previously, we need to do a similar sort of thing. So I use my favourite Loctite tool, a little blob of pink nail varnish. Just lock that screw in place with a little blob of nail varnish. In fact, I need to dab it a little bit further into there. Right, so when that goes hard, that'll be as solid as a rock. Now the next thing we need is my little lubricator. think we've still got some oil left in this. Here we have. So just pop a little bit of oil in that bottom bearing. A little bit in that one as well. Let's get a nice pair of mole grips. Close them up a bit. Yep, that's popped it into place. So, and we'll just give those little notches on the side a little tap. Just to bend them back over again. Yeah, that's nice and solid. Right, so we've reassembled the motor. Put the pulley back on. The pulley just sat flush with the top of the thing there. I've just gone a little bit too far. There it goes. Oh, that's actually coming back out again. This time we use the mole grips to actually bite that edge in. There we are, nice. Yep, lovely. That'll do the job. Still spins nicely. Right, so now we've got to do is fit it into that hole. So we need something similar sort of diameter, tubing of some kind. I wonder a bit of domestic waste hose pipe will do. Let's see what I can find. Right, funnily enough, I've got an old bit of waste pipe that I had left over from a previous house job. It's nearly there, so if I cut a length off here and then do this end might as well, and then cut a slot down it, we can wrap it round. So it only needs to be that long. So hopefully we can now pop that around there. That will fit into there and do up. In fact, I think what we need to do is just trim off that bit to make it, I think that's the right size if we actually trim that last little bit off. Right. There we are, shorter screw. Job done properly. Drop the motor back to about there, I think we had. A little bit more. Yep. Tighten the Let's go up. It's not going anywhere. Let me just sort the wires out. I could shorten that wire down, couldn't I? Yeah, let's do that as well. That should be it. Before we reassemble, so far, still got a couple of other jobs to do, like the tuning lamp at the end there, that doesn't light up. So having got that far, I just need to give the deck itself a little bit of a clean here, clean off those idlers, although they are working anyway, quite good. The rubber on those idlers is still quite good, so we don't need to worry about those. Let's just clean the deck off with a little bit of ISO. Clean the heads. Not bothered about recording, but we'll test it on that anyway. I can't see any reason why it wouldn't record, but we'll give it a test. That pinch roller definitely needed a bit of a clean. Let's try another clean with a fresh dose of isopropyl on it. Yeah, let's clean that off. A bit of kitchen roll wrapped around it to take out the slack. We'll just give a little bit of ISO on those rollers. As well. Yeah, so I've cleaned all that off, that's good. Right, let's power it off, put the deck back in the lid. Right, camera up there a minute. What we'll do is we'll turn this over, make sure everything's switched off. I've got a switch, that switch has got to go in there first, hasn't it? That's right. Just hang that over there for a minute. Tape deck is now in position. Let's just give that a try. Now we've got it all back together. Press play. Tape is moving forwards, yeah. Let's just put some music in. This tape was recorded badly, that's why there's a lot of brrr on it. Can't remember, it got recorded with too high a level. Some tracks are alright, but it's just... yeah, that's okay. Okay, so that's that. So the tape deck is done. We can leave that like that. We now need to find an FM aerial so that we can check to see if the stereo light actually comes on. That's the top two. So we need two long bits of wire. Pop. I'm just putting two wires into the FM input. We get loads and loads of interference in my LED for my lights. If the amplifier, if the tuner's any use, any good rather, it should ignore that. So switch to FM.
We spoke to Neil on Radio 2 Tea Time about... Just a little bit of slack, please. Trying to get the camera out. Okay. On crank stick, page, not dizzy.
Right, so that should be stereo, I think there. So let's just take that bulb out and check it. Chances are it's the bulb itself that's failed rather than the actual circuitry. Can we get it out easily? Let's just ditch it from the mains just in case we touch anything we shouldn't. And I can see that it's held by a little lamp holder. I should be able to just reach in and lift up. Take it away. But I can't reach in, lift it up and get the bulb out. It's on something that can bend backwards, like a metal plate. Or is it plastic? Can't see properly. A little bit of light in there. It should come out. I lever the bulb. Forward as I lift it. Oh, hang about. There's a plastic clip there. Does that release that whole front cabinet? If I pull the knob off. does not seem to want to come off. I've got my finger behind the bulb now. If I push the bulb holder up, that's all at it. Wants to go up but doesn't want to come out because there's not enough room. Let's take these knobs off the front. Get rid of that for a minute. No screws underneath, but there is these plastic clips, which if we get a spudger in there, yeah, yep, I was right. Front cabinet comes away like so. Releasing those clips has released it, but I've got the clatter on the microphone. This is like it wants to come out, but that sounds silly. I think there's screws that are holding these panels on, but there's a screw behind here that holds the panel on. I can't get at that screw. because this plastic's in the way. So this plastic's got to be able to come out. Right, I think plan C, look at the manual. Always useful looking in the manual. There are 2 clips on this plastic bit that come along and clip there, and there's a piece of wood on either side just in here that if you put a screwdriver in or something like that to just release the clip, it's supposed to come on. But I've actually found that pushing a spudger down the side here and then leaving it has released that one. So let's do the same on this side. Whilst applying a pull pressure there. So now it should he says it should. Here it is. There's one. And there's the other one. Oh, I see. The wooden blocks are pegs put in afterwards. So those are all clips there and there. So now we can get at the stereo bulb, which is just here. And we can lift the bulb holder. A little green tag in front of it, which makes it the bulb green. And I suspect that this bulb has probably failed. I think it has. I'll just double check it. Yeah. The bulb here has failed. And it is a, put my specs on because I can't see it. It says 0.6 volts. Was that 3.6 volts? I can't see it being 0.6 volts. Well, I think it actually is just a 6 volt. It's just an indentation before the 6. Right. It's just my luck not to have a 6 volt bulb. Oh, hang on. 6 volt. Got a 6 volt bulb. Let's just double check. So it's okay. Yep. Stick it on my power supply. 5.4 volts. Yep. That's a 6 volt bulb, alright. So we can pop that back into there. There we are. Right, let's see if it works. Put the aerial back in. Let's turn the lights off.
Is going to come tumbling down.
Composer. It's written by
Hey!
the white composer who appropriated the style of his contemporary black composers like William Grant,
There we have.
William Dawson, Nathaniel Dett, etc. And wrote very
A stereo indicator.
lots of ways, but
Wanted her to play.
When I think about
Jackie Norman,
there we are.
what I really find fascinating is that she recognized this long tradition of black singers that she was a part of, going back to Cissy Jones in the 19th century, Marian Anderson in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, Leontyne Price and Grace Bumbry as well. So she recognized that she was a part of this long tradition and that she had benefited.
Okie dokie, so we've now got the bulb illuminated in there. Right, as I was getting very poor results with this piece of wire, I've decided to hook up my external aerial so I can get proper decent stereo. So that you can see the stereo light is illuminated. There we are. So I go take it off tune, back onto tune. Do get stereo.
That's what we aim to do.
There we are. So I think we are now completed. I can put my lights back on, I can turn the sound off this, I can box the whole thing back up and give it a final test after just a little bit of a cleanup around the front, and we should be back ready for that. So let's get this out of the way, let's power it down, let's put this front panel back on, get rid of my old aerial connections. Should have put it on the aerial to start with. It was just throwing so many little wobblies in that respect. Push the push button back on there for the power switch. It only goes in one way. Interesting, it's got a little wedge of wood in there. Just presumably that's a way of making it fit better. Unless somebody else had done that in the past, I don't know. So this, let's put the front cabinet on. Now the customer didn't say to remove these old BBC radio stickers, so I'm not going to. There we are, so that's that. I'll just give the inside of that a wipe down as well, but it's come unstuck, but I'm not bothered. So that should now clip back into that place there and there. These bits of wood which are in there to hold that in. Now go back in. If you ever have to take the front off of one of these, the simplest way is to take these bits of wood out. Reminds me of the old Roberts radios. So what else didn't I screw back? There they are, the two screws I took out of this side panel when I was trying to get the front off. That's where they came from. I just thought the one thing I haven't tried is a recording. I did say I would have a look at it, even if it doesn't, the customer's not bothered, but I thought I might as well have a look. Okay, so let's reconnect the aerial, get a signal.
my arm. It was latched on it. I had to make the basic movement. The other panels got caught in the sleeve of my polo shirt. So I shoved it off and retreated to
You go to a corner. Did you manage to shut the door and trap it in the conservatory?
No, it trapped me in the conservatory. It caught me in a corner. It only retreated from me halfway across.
Right. Turn the lights out now. I've got my aerial reconnected on here. Let's put a tape in and press play on tape. Now, there might not be anything on this tape. It's okay. Just whiz it on a bit, because I'm sure there was something on this tape. Yep. Okay, so we'll stop there, zero the counter, go back onto FM,
The ambulance
and that's in
turned
stereo.
up, and they evacuated us all into the ambulance just in case it was still about. And after I'd reassured them that it wasn't in the house, it was actually in the back garden. Then the ambulance chappie went out and actually found it had moved and gone to the bottom of the garden. And he stood there like a pointer dog for goodness knows how long, while his companion in the ambulance checked me over.
Right, but still there's a snake in the garden. I want to get to the bit where the snake is picked up by
around the back garden. Then the ambulance chappie went out and actually found it had moved and gone to the bottom of the garden.
So recording is working fine. Yep. Right, so on the back of the unit we have got various sockets which I can show you. Of course they're going to be upside down, so let's turn the camera the right way around, we might see them properly. So on here we've got tape and phono, one or either of those, and we've got a microphone input there. So presumably the tape one will be in and out, but there's no record level on here. So I'm just going to have to rely on putting a test tone into here. So I'm just going to put the pins of a plug, standard DIN plug, into here. It should plug in there, like so. To my test signal. Now it's switched on, and we're in phono, which is tape mode. So I can hear both sides of that, so I'm going to see if I can hang that on there and hook. This is a test signal going in there. I'll just turn the amplitude up a bit. Yep. So it's only on one channel at the minute. So let's put my blank test tape in there. Press record. I'll record and play at the same time. And then I'm going to just take that off of there and touch it on the other channel. So that's right hand channel, left hand channel, right hand channel, left hand channel. So we are getting tones. Let's rewind back to there. There we are, it's recording left and right channels. So all he needs to do, if he needs to put Bluetooth in there is to connect ground in the middle pin and left and right channels on these two. Could experiment with the rest, but that will do. So that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's a good enough test of the auxiliary input. And there we are. So I think that's a fairly good repair. We've done quite a bit of work on this one. A lot of cleaning up on the tape deck. Replacing the faulty motor. There's the old beastie with the bearing gone. Still gone. Replace the faulty lamp. No other components needed changing. Everything else seems to be okay. That's it. Thanks very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this. Catch me on the next one. Cheerio.